Good morning or afternoon, or wherever you're watching from. It is I, Brendan. So, I don't know if everybody knows what's going on, but Patty and Deep are going to be hosting a little event here in a couple minutes, actually, any minute now. And so I figured what a great opportunity to hop on here to watch along with them. I'll throw it up here on the screen, or you can go over to the Patty YouTube channel or any of their social medias where they're going to be live streaming it and watch it there as well. But just kick back, relax, watch this. If people want to chime in here about their thoughts, I really don't know what they're going to be talking about. It's probably the same thing we've heard before. But yeah. Hey, Brian, how's it going, man? We got Brian over here over on YouTube chiming in. So yeah, get some people in here. We can watch this as soon as they start going live here and talk about it a little bit. I think that's, Deep is one of the most exciting things that's happened in the underwater world in quite some time. So for all of us to be able to join along and watch this and see what they're doing, and anybody that's been listening to the podcast or the stuff like that is, I'm skeptical of some things, but we'll see. After my speech at underwater intervention, what was it, last month now? Yeah, almost 2 months ago. When we were discussing, hey, where's the funding for them coming from, and I don't know. I'm still curious what we're going to see out of them this year in 2026, and where things are going to go from there. But yeah, in the meantime, I'm still working, and I have a bad case of, talking about doing things and going all over the place and different things coming and going and stuff along those lines. But I am working. Actually, I'm getting ready to redo the recording area right here and stuff like that. So once I get that done, it'll look a little better backdrop. Hopefully, if it looks the way I hope it does. So I'll make recording some stuff and maybe some better lighting too, to make some better videos, a little higher quality than what this looks like, especially when it gets out there on the VODs and stuff along those lines. But I still want to put my thoughts out there with Deep and what they're doing and my concerns as well as my hopes for it as well. One of the things we talked about, I think Babe and I talked about a little bit last time, was they are at least, making the way for anybody else that's trying to do this, whether it's us, Fabian with Proteus, Martin with Calamar Park. Who else? We've got Sean with the Waterford underwater habitat. So we've got a bunch of different people out there that are still actively trying to work on doing this. It's always a funding thing. Somehow, it's kind of like I look at it like the seasteading thing. Ocean builders got a lot of money, and most of it came from early Bitcoin. Nope, they're live, so we'll go ahead and hop on over there.
Things that many of us dreamed about as kids: exploring space, exploring the deep ocean, becoming astronauts, aquanauts. It carries this sense of wonder and just sense of wonder and possibility. There's something about ocean and space exploration that just feels like magic. And today what we're talking about is a little bit of that stardust sprinkled with salt water. And today we get to talk to 3 of those people that are turning those dreams into reality. So before we get started, I just want to do a little housekeeping and just again welcome everyone that's just joining us today. And if you have questions throughout this chat, just pop them in the streaming and we'll see if we can get our guest to answer some of those questions today. So today we're speaking with 3 leaders from Deep, an ocean technology and engineering company on a mission to make humans aquatic. In other words, to make it possible for people to live and work underwater. Through dive training, submersible expeditions, and subsea, that word is very hard for me to say for some reason, human habitats, Deep is reimagining how humans interact with the ocean. this is a very exciting time to be speaking with these guys today, because they are reaching a milestone with their project, and they recently unveiled what's called Vanguard, a pilot subsea habitat, which is now in the final build and testing. And Norman and Roger, you can't see Roger's name, but Roger's just joined us with Norman down there, are actually doing some of that testing today. So we will probably get to ask some more questions about that. So I'm going to just dive into it, but really what makes this story so compelling is that the three people joining us today represent the full cycle of Vanguard, from design to deployment to life inside the habitat. And I'd like to start by introducing each of them in order of how this Vanguard project, this underwater subsea habitat, comes to life. So Norman, I'm going to start with you. You're the Chief Technology Officer at Deep. Nice. Thank you for joining us today. Norman is the lead engineer behind Vanguard and the architect of Deep's next generation habitat, Sentinel. With a background that spans spaceflight technology and deep water engineering, he brings a rare perspective on what it takes to safely support humans in extreme environments. So Norman, I'd love to ask you the first question today about Vanguard and about deep sea exploration and subsea habitats. So you worked in both space and subsea environments. When did Vanguard shift from being a bold idea to something you truly believe could work? Oh, Norman, you are muted, and Dawn, you are too, just in case you want to jump in and add anything.
How about now?
You're good. We can hear you loud and clear.
Great. So the wake-up call for me, if you will, happened 2 years ago when I got the call out of the blue from Deep, looking for an individual to fulfill this role of Chief Technology Officer to deliver the first habitat, Vanguard, and beyond, our roadmap to larger habitats and deeper diving. As you know, my career spans both space flight and deep water marine engineering, and when I enjoyed this phone call from Deep, it was within 24 hours and I couldn't think about anything else. I mean, how cool is that? Living and working underwater. I mean, you can tell I have a few gray hairs, so I was inspired by, the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau back in the day. And if you remember Conch Shelf and habitats from days after, that's an inspiration for me. And here we are, we're today building and soon to install a modern era undersea habitat.
You must pinch yourself sometimes. I would say that, like, just what I said earlier about little kids dreaming about this type of thing, from space flight to now it just seems unreal that you're building and engineering habitats that people can actually live in underwater.
Oh, it's a dream job for me and a privilege, and I have the great fortune to work with individuals like Dawn and Roger. Engineering, science, operations. What a pleasure.
So we're going to definitely dive more into Vanguard later. We're going to show some pictures of what that looks like, because I know everyone that's listening right now wants to know more about what Vanguard is, what it's like to live underwater, and this pilot project that you're working on to, make humans aquatic and live underwater for extended periods of time. But I'd like to introduce Roger. So once it's in the water, then the responsibility kind of shifts over to Roger to really operate this thing and make sure people are safe and, keeping people alive underwater, correct? So Roger, before you answer that though, I just want to briefly interrupt and introduce you. So Roger Garcia is the Director of Habitat Operations at Deep. He's a former US Navy diver and has spent more than 2 decades operating NASA's Aquarius Reef Base. And you've lived nearly 100 days underwater, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
So you really understand what it takes to keep people safe underwater and functioning at depth, huh?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
So when you look at Vanguard and what tells you that humans can actually live and work safely underwater? How do you do that on a daily basis? And how are you keeping people alive under there for
Sure.
such long periods of Live.
Sure, sure. The one thing that I will say is that we know what we're doing, right? So we're coming with almost 40 years of experience combined. We have other people that were working with me. His name is Tom Potts. Combined experience. We have decades of that. So bringing that experience over to Vanguard is going to continue. That thought process of safety being
I've been watching
paramount.
Tom Potts.
Of
He's worked
course,
with Aquarius.
but
He's like been the head of Aquarius
as far as
for
how
years
we
now.
keep people safe down there, the life support systems, the way they're designed, the way we monitor the atmosphere for the oxygen percentage, carbon dioxide, things like that. Not only down there at the Vanguard, but having the ability to see that 15 miles away on shore is like a game changer, because that means that we don't have to have somebody out there all the time, right? In the end, or maybe in the very near future, we're looking to be completely autonomous. So we may not even have to have anything on the surface. So we're already leading the way like that. The other thing is, depending on where you're deployed and things like that, as far as the depth, sometimes it's not as hard as people think to like bring out logistics, their food, swap out towels, normal everyday things that people don't think about. It's really not that difficult. And along those lines, our operations team, they want to dive. So they want to get in the water. They want to do the inspections. They want to bring the food. They want to bring fresh towels, things like that, and check on the crew. We have constant communications. We have cameras, you name it. So we're always monitoring the crew inside 24/7. Even when they're sleeping, they can rest assured they can have a nice, sleep
Habitat.
Yeah, a nice habitat. Yeah,
Like
good
sleep
point.
environment. Yeah.
Nice sleeping habitat, because we've got their back.
Hey, Molly, why don't you pop up? We have our back-end engineer right now helping us out. Molly, can you pop up the actual image of Vanguard so people have a reference of what we're talking about? And before I introduce you and ask you the next question, Norman or Roger, can you tell a little bit? I know that 4 people, this is designed for 4 people to safely live at depth at about 14 meters for 7 days. Is that correct?
That's correct, or 45 feet.
Yes, or 45 feet for those living in the non-metric countries. So here's a picture of the exterior of Vanguard that was unveiled at the end of last year, not yet in the water. But can you give us,
The desire
Norman or Roger, however,
to
can you walk us through what we're looking at right
now,
here so people can have a better
I wanna
idea
save it.
before we dive into dive deeper and talk about what's going on inside and why?
Sure, I'll take this one,
Sure.
and Roger, you can add color. So
Sure.
the image you see here, the far right, the rectangular section painted black, that's the dive center, or wet porch as we call it. And that's the coolest part of Vanguard, because in the floor is an opening called the moon pool, the portal from outside in or inside out to the ocean realm. I think you'll see another picture. There's a large window on that wall that's going to be the best view in the house. That's where all the diving activity happens. Roger's world. I'll let Roger talk about that. And you see compressed gas storage on that section of the wet porch. You move farther to the left, what we call the bow. You go through 2 chambers. One is an equipment lock, and then you go into the main lock. The main lock is a very comfortable living space for the crew of 4. There's bunks in there for 4. You can reconfigure the space during the day for comfortable living and working. There's a galley area, and a variety of windows in the space where from any place in Vanguard you can see the ocean realm outside. And the last thing you see there, the frame, that's the exo frame. That's just a protective steel structure For future days, if we put down additional equipment near Vanguard, that's to protect Vanguard.
Okay, before we dive deeper into this, and show the interior, I want to introduce Dawn. So we have Norman, who's built this beautiful habitat and engineered it. We have Roger, who's handling operations, underwater operations, and keeping people safe and living undersea. And then we have Dawn. So Dawn, Dawn really is going to answer the question for us. Why are people living down there in the first place? Why is Deep wanting to engineer these subsea habitats and scale these globally? So Dawn's Deep's director of scientific research. She's an expert in human performance in extreme environments. She's also lived underwater already, and NASA's NEMO mission, studying what happens to the body and mind when we push the boundaries of human habitation. There's so much more to say here, but you are welcome to add to that. But if I would love for you to kind of dive into, from a science perspective, what is happening here? Like, why do we want to do this? Why do we want humans to be aquatic? And what type of research and things are happening at depth? And what is the advantage of being down there for, let's just say, a week at a time and longer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and just a shout out to, to Roger, one of my amazing teammates. I've known Roger for quite some time because he was director of
Hey, Dawn, your audio is, oh, that's what it was. Try again.
Is that better? Is that better? Is it better?
No, pull that out. Pull that
better?
out. Yes, that's way better.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Sorry about that. I was trying to hide that last minute. Okay, never mind.
No, it's okay. We all know that we all have these things in, so it's okay.
The muffled chirp sound. No, I was giving a shout out to Norman and Roger as teammates, but also just noting that Roger was director of operations for the mission that I was on previously with NEMO that you mentioned, and so just very cool to have that transition of working with him across a NASA mission that we did. This is in 2016, and now translating that to this next generation habitat, next generation undersea habitation program. So it's a lot of fun to work with this team. So why are we doing this? It's really to create an amplified and evolved tool set for researchers, for educators, explorers, and really amplify their time underwater. So if you think about traditional scuba, you go down, you get kind of a snapshot of a short period of time, and then you have to come back to the surface. Saturation diving is not necessarily a new concept. It goes back many decades to commercial diving, military diving, and also for scientific diving. But we're looking at taking this concept of saturation diving and moving it to the next generation with newer habitats. The last undersea habitat that was built in the 1980s. So we really want to evolve that concept and bring it to the next generation, right? And really bring it out to humanity. And so with that, when you do this type of diving, you have that extended period of time on the bottom. So you can do excursions outside of the habitat for hours at a time, right? Instead of just minutes at a time, 30, 60 minutes. And then dive tables say you have to come back up to the surface. So now you're actually really able to get out there and get a substantial amount of work done, whether that's data collection or collecting samples or doing observations or exploration. And then when you get back inside the habitat, you have this working time on the bottom as well, which is really exciting. And I can kind of dig a little bit more into that about what the habitat brings as far as kind of newer concepts in that space that we really want to build out. But I was just talking to my friend John Council, who runs the Avalon Diving History exhibit in Catalina Island for anybody who's had the chance to visit. Just absolutely amazing spot. And we were talking, he has a long history in all forms of diving. And we were talking about, traditional scuba, so I'm stealing this from him, and I really like this. So traditional scuba is a snapshot, right? And then if you do technical diving or even submersibles, you're getting kind of as he called it, a documentary. So a little bit longer period of time, but it's not until you really get that immersion in that environment. And the way he put it is, it's like a documentary series. So now you're seeing all the cycles, you're really getting to know the environment, you're integrating with the environment. You're not just seeing, 4 to 6 hours, even what you would get with the submersible or technical diving. Now you're really getting that exposure and really getting to understand. You think about Jane Goodall, right? And when she was studying primates and just really getting to know that environment. And so that's what we want to bring out, again, to scientists, to explorers, to educators. And then as we're doing that, also learn more about how that impacts the human body across a variety of individuals with a variety of characteristics. So we're really excited about, what we can bring with new technology and new science as we're bringing our habitats online.
So to make it more real for our audience, you're going from being so 46 feet, 14 meters, let's use that as the real example right now. You're going from maybe minutes to hours every single day. So like you're saying, you're building on that research, you're doing potentially coral restoration projects or species surveys. You can even do, I would imagine, like some type of climate test that tells more about climate change or just ocean change in general. And then, like you said, the effects physiologically on the body, but you're able to do that for long periods of time. And I guess just diving into some of those examples, like I'm saying, that will help give more insights and answers to problems that we have as mankind or humankind, with nature-based solutions or even medicine. And like, that's what we're going to start finding these solutions by being underwater for long periods of time. So I guess answering that why is, what are we looking for under there?
Yeah, I mean, all the things that you just said and more. And the way, it's interesting because kind of going back to my research career, right? So I transitioned from being somebody who studied healthy humans in extreme environments, and then I did some work kind of in the clinical space. And so if you think about what we're learning about how healthy humans respond to a higher stress environment or unique environment, let's just say unique environment like saturation diving. And then how can we also protect those individuals and make sure that they're working to the best of their ability and stay as healthy as possible in that environment? There's so many lessons that can be translated back to, the ground-based population. I won't say earth-based because we're all still on Earth, but the ground-based population and patient populations, for example. And so, there's that. There's also things like marine peptides and really being able to amplify the time on the bottom for discovery of those. And then I kind of alluded to this before, but I'll go ahead and speak to it. Traditionally, when you collect samples, you have to bring them to the surface before they can be processed and analyzed. So if you think about proteins or, RNA and DNA samples that you're trying to collect at bottom, they're going through a decompression process as you bring them back to the surface.
Like a human being, right?
Yeah, and human samples too, by the way. And so we learned this during, other studies that I've been a part of where we collect the samples at depth and then, we bring them to the surface because that's the only place you just don't have the tools and technology or the lab space to process those at depth. What you end up seeing in kind of the signature, this is kind of going into the science part, but the molecular signature of the samples is you see, a signature that's associated with the decompression process itself. And a lot of times they'll kind of drown out any other signals or protein changes or RNA or whatever that looks like. And also there's a chance of degradation of the samples because of time and just going through that decompression process. And so we're really excited about, hey, taking this space underwater, so not just for humans to live under, but to utilize as a laboratory space. So now you can actually process those samples at depth and really capture what's happening, either for the species that are living at depth, whether it's a tiny piece of tissue sample or a tiny piece of coral, or whether that's a human blood sample that we capture, right? And understanding what's happening to the humans while they're at depth, we'll really be able to start to understand, because this has not been looked at historically, just because we haven't had the capability to do so.
Yes, that's going to have incredible impact on accelerating research and, scientific research, et cetera. Because we have some questions coming in, mostly divers, obviously, in this audience today. They're very interested in what you're breathing underwater, the mix of gas underwater, and and how much. Someone also asked how much it weighs. So maybe Norman, you can talk about the weight and the structural element, and then Roger can dive into the gas and more of the diving details. Norman, I'm going to give it to you. And I would love for you to also, when you answer that question about just the build of and the engineering, I read somewhere that you modeled out 20 years for the most destructive Florida hurricane, just so to make sure this thing could withstand the force of that kind of event. And I think that is amazing.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to kind of build that in and maybe Molly, you can pop up the picture of Vanguard again as Norman's walking through the exterior shot of the Vanguard. Yeah. Or
Katie,
that's the
that's
inside. Yeah, that
that's
one. Okay.
well, that's a perfect segue into the weight question. And then I'll turn it over to you, Roger,
Sure.
to talk about breathing gas. So the Vanguard you see there is roughly, I'd say 30 tons of largely steel. That's only a portion of what we're going to set on the ocean floor. I'm not sure overall system, but Vanguard sets down on a foundation we call the base plate. It's a large steel structure, and it's nearly 300 tons of steel. And the reason for that is to survive those extreme storm events. And yes, we've gone back 20 years and gathered all the data available to us to sort of envelope a load case. I mean, this is hardcore engineering here. So we can of course, we'd end the mission, bring everyone to shore. We want Vanguard to survive these storm conditions, and like in the case of a hurricane, it's not so much the wind, but it's the waves and the water motion from the waves overhead. Interestingly enough, the deeper we go, the better it gets. So future habitats will be in deeper water and need less of such a massive structural foundation underneath. So overall, we're roughly 350 tons of steel installed on the ocean floor. As I was going to turn it over to Roger for breathing gas.
Go ahead. Let's do that. And then I'll jump into my other question. Molly, can you pop up, or Roger, do you want to start with this picture of the external, like with the tanks here? You want to also, because we also have the image of the inside, so we can start here and then pop in the other one.
Sure, yeah.
The interior
So-
picture. Okay, you just let me know.
Yeah, sure. So what Norman was pointing to were the, let's say, dive center, which is, we also call it the wet porch, where all the tanks, you see all the high pressure air cylinders along the side, right? Those are what we would call the bottle banks, or basically the air source or breathing medium source, regardless of what your mix is, right? In this particular case, it's air, but that is the storage area or storage cylinders for the air that the occupants are going to be breathing, and we're going to be using for pressurization, decompression, also what's known as a constant vent. That way you can sort of keep CO2 under control. And that constant airflow actually goes through the entire Vanguard, through each lock, all the way out to the dive center or wet porch, and kind of burps out the bottom. So that's what you're seeing there.
Molly, can you pop up the interior shot we have of the dive center as well, so Roger can speak to that? Keep going. That's the interior. That's the living area. There we go. How about that one?
Yeah, so that's what Norman referred to as the dive center. Sometimes we'll refer to it as the wet porch, because that's where you have your air-water interface, where the divers come in and out. So as you look around left or right, especially those panels that are kind of like a light blue, those are essentially the diver panels and pressurization panels for the entry lock and main lock. So the air comes into those panels at sometimes at a high pressure. In this case, they come in at what we would call an intermediate pressure, roughly around 350 psi or 400 psi, and then it gets reduced to a lower working pressure, so the divers can breathe, and to go inside the other locks, the entry lock and main lock, for pressurization and basically atmosphere control as a breathing medium. And then you see a helmet on one of the benches. So those two benches you see on the sides, those can be diver benches. I mean, they're essentially diver benches. They can be used for other things, but those are the diver benches. So the divers will sit down on the benches there. We'll put their harnesses on, get them all checked out, put their helmets on, and then we'll help them stand up and go to the moon pool and go down the ladder, and then they can go outside and go on their excursion. You see a little bit, a cut of the diver umbilical going to the helmet there on the right side of the screen as well. And then if you, on the right side, there's a silver panel right there. I'm gonna call that the data acquisition panel. That's where basically everything comes in, and I'm talking about what the depth is, what the oxygen partial pressure is in there, the carbon dioxide, the depth, you name it. All that data comes in there. It's processed, and there's a screen there for the operators that they can basically cycle through the screen, and they could basically choose, okay, I want to see the 3 cameras on the port side or left side of the Vanguard. They can pull that up and see it on that screen. So that has all that data on there. And then up forward, you can't really tell too much, but you're going to have panels for the 24-volt battery systems, which are for can be for lighting, cameras, emergency backup power as well for lighting and cameras and communications. And that's kind of like a little dive board up there, that you can write when the diver, goes out on the excursion, and when they come back and stuff like that to help you kind of track things if you wanted to. And then you're going to see the hatch, that big silver hatch that's there. Our engineering team did a great job designing that, because that door had to play a very specific role, because I have to be able to pressurize the lock sort of from both directions. The entry lock has to be able to see positive pressure and negative pressure as compared to the ambient pressure in the wet porch. So normally you have 2 hatches. So this one is only 1. So they designed it to take pressure from both sides, and they did a really good job. But that hatch is basically to be able to make the transition inside the entry lock. What's that?
Thank you, Roger.
Oh yeah. Hey, Norman. Hey, I tell you, Norman, no, it's great
Man's right
to work.
there.
It is. It's great to work with Norman. Yeah.
I don't know if the word is beautiful, Norman, but it is stunning. And I guess I have to ask, with your work, and how much of this has been really influenced by your work with NASA and working on space flight. And I guess people have been living in the International Space Station, since the year 2000. And I look at this and I see something very similar. So I would love to kind of dive into like the inspiration and just like, I guess the engineering that was applied to this habitat that you learned from developing those habitats, because it looks very similar.
Well, I get the same reaction whenever I see the hatch. That is a piece of precision engineering, and yes.
Yeah.
You know what the space flight realm taught me, building equipment for a space shuttle and space station, was the no kidding engineering rigor that it takes, and I'll call it extreme problem solving. But not only the engineering rigor, but then you submit your engineering rigor to review and verification. So it's like checks and cross-check and verify, all for operating safely in an environment that can sometimes be hazardous.
Wow, it's just incredible. Molly, I was gonna have you just pop up we have another picture of the dive center that might give, if one of you want to speak to what we're looking at here, just because it helps us get the better picture of, I know, Roger, you kind of spoke to it, but here may be another angle from from kind of going into that area. Did
you want to say something?
Yeah, I can't help it. I have to speak up on this image because this is my favorite view. So what you're looking through is not installed in this picture, is a large, we'll call it a bay window, where we'll be able to look out into the ocean realm. It's going to be the most impressive image from vision from inside of the habitat outside. It's really there for safety. When Roger's team is running a dive op, this is how you keep eyes on your divers. What you can see in the floor of this picture is a kind of a grating.
Mhm.
That when you lift that grating up and store it, that's the moon pool.
Mhm.
So that is the free and open access to the ocean realm from inside the habitat.
Did you
And
name
vice
it? Did you name it the moon pool?
I think that's an industry
Oh, that
standard
is.
name, but I'll claim it if it's available.
It makes it sound even more magical, actually. More. Okay. Well, I do have a question before moving on. When Vanguard's deployed, what are the initial 4 humans that are going to be going underwater and living in the habitat? Do we know yet? Do you know yet?
You're asking who's going to go in first?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I won't mention any names, but I can tell you it'll be operations folks, shortly followed by engineering folks.
Okay. I know
So-
that there's people on this call listening right now that are wondering, when can divers be part of this experience? And I know it's not this one. And
Yeah,
maybe
so
we can tap into that further when we talk about Sentinel and scaling this, because this is truly a pilot for the bigger vision too of what you're calling Sentinel, which I
Yes, it
believe you
is.
mentioned would be deeper and holds more about maybe 8 people at a time. Maybe we should talk about a little bit more how this will inform that process and how this is the stepping stone to that bigger picture.
So I can speak to the roadmap if you like. So we have an engineering journey ahead of us. Very exciting and very cool, by the way. Now, as we are finishing up the design build of Vanguard, we are already stepping over into the design phase for Sentinel, which will, in the coming days, be revealed on our website. It's a larger modular architecture of habitats that we can, to coin a phrase, put together as Lego pieces and make everything from small habitats to larger cluster construction habitats, which gets us to our vision of making humans aquatic and habitats and oceans all over the world.
I'm sure that having that modular capability allows you, I would assume, to make it more customizable to your customers who are wanting to, like, what kind of research you're doing and what type of living, or like what your needs are, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. We'll have the the provisions for diving and crew accommodations, but be able to flex for the where it's installed, for the science that needs to be done, all of the above.
Sorry, I got a little distracted. We lost Dawn for a second, but she's back. Are we all here?
Yes.
Oh, it showed me. It just showed us, and then and no Katie from my side. That's fine.
Oh, okay. I think we're all here. We're trying to. I think it's just playing with the pictures to make sure.
Yeah.
Dawn, I'm going to go back to you because I just mentioned something about customers, and I think it would be a nice something to paint the picture for people, so our audience to understand. So when we talk about Vanguard specifically, it's a pilot. It's going to have 4 people underwater at a time. Then the idea is, I think, to gather insights and learning to expand and to scale to make people expand the capabilities of people to live underwater. Can you talk more about? I guess there's actually customers and who are when we say customers, that could be what? Academia, research institutions, at the NASA, space flight, those type of things. Can you talk a little bit more of like fit for purpose, or when Norman's engineering this thing for who these people are, like the habitats, who are some of these customers, what would they need, and how you're helping deliver and meet those needs from a scientific perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really our customer base is a pretty wide span. And one thing that, one, there's a history again of subsea habitats that we can kind of build on and thinking about who would want to use these, but we're also really trying to think outside the box and push and say, there's some really unique applications. For example, like we talked about the marine peptides that could be fitting into the pharmaceutical industry. Could there be interest in that space and building out? But just, high level thinking about science from a marine science perspective, but also the human science, humans, extreme environment. So whether that's undersea or even just humans in a remote environment and looking at how individuals, or teams work in, kind of unique environments is really interesting. There are folks in the space sector, as you noted, that we're in conversations with, and there's a long history of using subsea habitats that actually paralleled for decades, space exploration and undersea habitation, and looking at how the two can play off of each other. So we're just looking at an expansion and continuation of that similar work, and that's for research purposes, but also for things like crew training and also being able to test out protocol, for example, before it goes into space. So it's a really good platform for being able to test out technology and protocol before you send it off to space. There's a medical community, which we've had some interesting conversations there about, this again is an extreme remote environment. So it's a really unique platform for individuals to be able to train. And, again, you're right offshore, so you've got that access if you need it to be able to take out supplies, for example, for any types of training. But if you really want to make it as isolated as possible, especially being in saturation, you are isolated making decisions. So we've had some conversations with groups who are interested in remote medicine and extreme medicine and using this as a platform for testing and for research and for training as well. There are other types of applications. I mean, the list is pretty long, but we're really excited. And then the education piece too, right? So really being able to expand those exposures and getting out to students, from K through 12 and, college level and adults too. I mean, that's really important as individuals being able to get that exposure and learn more about the environments around them. And then restoration, you mentioned this before, Katie, the restoration piece is really critically important to us. And it's really going to be critical to some of our early missions, is working with restoration groups who are already doing an amazing job, but they're using traditional scuba, which kind of hinders to a certain degree. I mean, they're doing the best that they can using traditional scuba, but the depth limitations are kind of there because you're using traditional scuba, so you only have so much time on the bottom. And then there's just a safety implication too, as you're going deeper and have to think about repeat decompression from deep dives. So now we can really think about one, longer term dive, so we can really expand out restoration work, but also the restoration science piece and really kind of dig into how do you best do reef restoration. But then there's also deeper restoration, which we're really excited about because that's less touched on. And it's something that we started to do actually in our NASA NEMO missions. We were working with restoration groups in the Florida Keys. And that was really exciting work to be able to start to delve into what does deeper coral or reef restoration look like. So we really want to expand on that. So lots of different areas that we're building on. And again, just super excited about building this out. And you had asked about people say, hey, how do I become a part of this? Obviously, we've got our first reps and sets to get through internally, like Norman said, with engineering and operations. We've got some early missions planned that we'll be announcing, soon in the very near future. But then beyond that, I would say just individuals, please follow us on deep.com. That's our website, and also on our socials at Deep Engineered. And we'll be having more and more, information out about future missions, calls for research and education opportunities, things along those lines that we would love for the community to get involved with as they can.
It's so exciting just from an ocean conservation point of view, which is a lot of the work that we're working on with PADI Foundation and just with divers in general, because we can mobilize divers, millions of divers, to take action underwater as citizen science and collect data. And I just think of the opportunity of collecting better data to accelerate and make sure that we're, like you said, there's lots of people doing it, but are we doing it the right and best way? And I just see so much potential there that can just, it's going to be incredible when we're able to actually socialize and leverage that learning, globally. What do you, with all of that being said, Dawn, with all those different customers and needs and people that are really excited about this opportunity to get underwater, what are you most excited about? Like in 5 years from now, like where do you want to see, like what is the future of scientific research underwater, and like what is really, I think that you're excited about all of it, but if you could like really narrow it down to a couple of things, what would that be?
Yeah, all of it. I was gonna say my first thing is my first dive in the habitat is the thing, selfishly that I'm really excited
Of
about.
course.
No, I think the restoration piece is definitely of interest. It's something that we're really passionate about and thinking about what we can really build out in that space. And you say 5 years, I mean, that's going to fly by. I mean, I've been with Deep for just over about 2.25 years, and it's just completely flown by. So I know we're going to be super busy over the next 5 years for sure and get a lot done. But um, from a human research perspective, just because that's my background, one of the things I'm really excited about is we're going to be building out kind of a comprehensive database to capture data on individuals who consent, obviously, but before, during, and after a mission across a variety of different measurements that haven't historically been captured for saturation diving. And in particular, now we're bringing people in that aren't, they're not military, they're not commercial divers, maybe a little bit of a different age range, more females, for example. So really kind of thinking about, if we're really going to make humans aquatic, really thinking about a variety of characteristics that we want to tap into and understand how saturation diving impacts those individuals. And, what are the benefits of saturation diving too, right? So not just how does the body change, but are there benefits there to be conferred as well? And then thinking about in that setting, there's so much information now in the last, decade in particular about performance optimization and wellness and resilience. So what parts of that can we integrate into crew missions? For example, really being able to optimize sleep, which I love working with Roger, but the previous habitat that we were a part of, during that mission, I will tell you, I did not get a lot of sleep. It was okay because I was super excited and it was amazing and all the things, but I was definitely sleep deprived, and that we know how that impacts performance. So, and that has nothing to do with Roger. That was one of my crew members snoring really loudly. So
We won't mention any names.
Yeah, no. But if we're thinking about, for example, Norman's talking about that modular concept, right? So now you're getting more spaced individuals, you're getting that privacy. All that is so important over time for crew wellness and performance. So I think that's going to be really important. And then, nutrition is another one. We've been thinking outside the box of, hey, instead of, just giving people, the basic nutrients, which is fine, you need to feed them and nourish them, but can we make it so it's it's pleasurable and enjoyable, and that they're eating things that they can taste, because that's something that you lose a bit of, some people lose a sense of at depth.
Yeah, Roger says we need to make sure there's plenty of hot sauce under.
Yeah, hot sauce. Yeah, and just flavorful things. So I think that's one of the, and not just flavorful, but also nutrient dense too. So I think those are things that we're definitely thinking about too as we move forward. And I'm really excited about integrating that concept into subsea habitation. It doesn't have to be this super rugged, experience where you're just, kind of survival mode. I think it should be something where we're looking at helping people thrive, and that allows them to work to the best of their ability in those environments and truly enjoy it. And as they want to go back, I don't know a single person who did an undersea mission and said they didn't want to go back, but this just amplifies that as well.
That's awesome. That's just so awesome. Speaking of safety, or just survival, and Roger, going back to you, what are the biggest challenges that you anticipate, in the future, like when this thing is underwater and operating, that kind of things that you're going to face on a daily basis, or maybe just problem solving or general, what do you anticipate will be kind of that big,
So everything you said is what I have to anticipate. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have to look at the big picture, right? I can't just think of just what's going on inside. And what I'm talking about is I have to consider the weather. I mean, hurricane season, can be an issue, or any storm can be an issue. We have to track it, and we have to have a plan ahead of time on when to respond. And we have to respond really, really early, because we do not want to get caught having to decompress the occupants in a hurry and get them out right during the storm. That's not, so I have to look at that. I have to consider the mooring system, do inspections every day before the mission as well, during the pre-missions, what I would call it pre-missions. I have to think about what we call the HSB, which is the habitat support buoy. are the compressors working properly? You know, do I have to change filters? Do I have to change the oil? I can go on and on like that, because
Uh-huh.
if you don't do that kind of preventive maintenance and inspections, not only prior to the mission, but as time goes on a regular basis,
Mhm.
then things happen all the time, especially in the marine industry, happen all the time. Um, Also, the systems itself, even though the engineers do a great job at designing the system, just the electronics, even though the environment um, is, I'm going to use the word controlled, right?
Mhm.
We can try to control the humidity. We control the ambient gases in there to stay within a parameter that is, isn't going to be toxic. We try to keep it cool and all that stuff. Things break,
Mhm.
mission. And one of the biggest things for me is I have to consider, okay, what problem are we having? What broke, let's say,
Mhm.
and can I keep operating? Can I let the mission continue so our customers can meet the mission objectives, or do I have to cancel the mission? I have to do that all the time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be, as far as the dive system itself. Sometimes it's the dive equipment itself. Sometimes we have a problem with the helmets, with the umbilicals. Um, so so yeah, everything.
Equipment.
Yeah.
So Roger, so we know there's 4 people that can live that are in the habitat itself, but you
Yeah.
talk about maintenance. Is there actually a surface support? What's the surface support system and crew look like that's supporting Vanguard, for example?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that question, because not that we want it, not that we need it,
Mhm.
but a lot of times, the operations team really is in the background. That's our job. It's all about our customer and our mission and what the company's core goal is. Um, but there's an operations team in the background that is planning for months. I mean, for our first mission, I'm going to be planning with Don for months to get
Mhm.
ready. And the every day when we have a mission going on, the operation team goes out there every day for logistics, like we were talking about earlier. We got to
Mhm.
bring out food, we got to take out trash, we got to bring potable water, clean towels, things like that. They again also inspecting outside, because sometimes the uh, the Aquanaut team inside, to include the operators, the deep operators,
Mhm.
they're focusing on the dive and the mission, and sometimes there's still checks that you have to do on the exterior to make sure that the valve condition is in the right location, being open or shut depending on what it's used for. Um, so that's the role that the operations team plays, like on a daily basis. Now, at the end of the day, if I can take just a few more minutes,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, let's say we're done supporting the aquanauts and our customer offshore and doing all the safety checks and everything else, and we come back. That doesn't mean that our day is done. We're on call 24/7 during a mission, because we're on call in case there's an emergency offshore, so we can respond immediately and go offshore and put our emergency plans into action, whatever that may be. That's the role that the operations team plays. And there's going to be, I'm going to always have at least 2 people on a night shift, so the rest of the team can sort of get an 8 hour, hopefully an 8 hour sleep. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way, but there's going to be 2 people on night shift that they are going to help in a big way, because they can actually fill the tanks. That way, when a team comes back from the daily ops, they don't have to stick around and rinse the gear, fill the tanks. They can go home, because they might have already put in a 10-hour day. The night
Mhm.
shift can pick that up and fill tanks, rinse the gear, get the boat ready. That way, first thing in the morning, it's ready to go. The team that comes in the morning, they don't have to do much. They just got to get on the boat, turn it on, and go. So that's the operations team.
So this surface operation unit, how far typically will it be? And I guess we'll just specifically talk about Vanguard. Like, how far are you? And are you, when you're taxiing back and forth, are you using a submersible, or are you diving down there? How are you getting supplies back and forth? What are the logistics involved in supporting this team down underwater?
Yeah, well, you mentioned submersibles, so we've done that before, and we will have plans for that as well. But right now, or even in the past, we it's been done before, but we haven't done it that often. You could do logistics with a submersible as well, but mainly it's the boat goes out, and you're exactly right. It's a dive team that basically takes a container. This is I'm going to use the term pressure pot. So it's a pressure vessel.
Mhm.
So you just load the container with whatever you need, the food, towels, you know, computers. Let's say, Dawn needs to draw blood, because when Dawn and I worked together, we were drawing blood for her research. Whatever Dawn may need in mission 001, we pack it up on the boat, secure it, and then take it down, and that stays dry. And then when we get into, at the Vanguard, we go into the moon pool and come up into the airspace. They'll pull it up, and then what they do is they'll open a valve, and then it'll equalize. Because remember, that container's packed at 1 atmosphere, right? At that
Mhm.
pressure. When
Mhm.
it's down there, there's more pressure. So you'll never be able to open that lid. You can take you can yeah, you can take the clamps off, but you'll never be able to pull that lid off. So you open a valve, and then the pressure will equalize, and then you'll be able to open the lid and take out your items, whatever that may be. So that happens essentially every day. And sometimes, just to give you an example, this is actually pretty cool, just so people can kind of visualize this. We're going to have 2 water tanks on board. They're about 280 gallons each,
Mhm.
and obviously they're going to use it up. So I have to come out. The ops team goes out, and we come out with a portable water tank and a pump, and then we tap into a panel that's going to be at the habitat support buoy, and we have a hose that we'll just tighten up there, and it goes through that pump, and that pump is going to take the water from the boat and then pump it down to the Vanguard into the tank. And so that's how we're going to take care of the crew down there, like that.
That's super interesting. I'm sure everyone's gonna be very excited when they can see a tour of this thing in action.
Yeah.
Norman, going back to you, curious. So Vanguard is a pilot habitat. Does it ever stop being a pilot or stop being in use? Or once it goes in, is it permanent?
It is intended to permanent use and occupation for years, decades.
Okay.
Now, of course, we're thinking ahead. There'll be upgrades along the way. I think it's continuous learning and what I'd call a development test platform for us as we continue the journey on the roadmap.
I'm curious from a conservation sustainability mindset. Does it come into your, like, are there considerations for how these habitats are deployed on the ocean floor and, avoiding any top, I mean, obviously we don't want to put it onto a coral reef. That's obvious, but what type of considerations are taken into account from like an environmental, like conscious, like keeping the ocean, not keeping it, living in harmony, I guess, with the ocean better than I think that we tend to do on land, if you will.
I would say engineering rigor that I mentioned before, the same rigor on site selection, environmental considerations. We are working with all of the permitting authorities throughout on, exact location where Vanguard is going to go, the existing species. Yes, an equal amount of rigor in the whole installation, where it's going to go to the rigor we put into the design of Vanguard itself.
What curious as well, how long have you been working on designing Vanguard? How many years?
I would say this is the culmination of a 2-year project.
Okay.
Yeah, plus or minus.
Okay. That doesn't seem too long to me in consideration, but I think that's because you have so much expertise you're bringing to. That's probably why you have the role that you have, taking all this space
Well,
knowledge.
thank you. And
No comment on
more than
that.
once in this call, we mentioned, Norman building the habitat. Oh no, I have a whole
You
team
have a whole team, of course.
of
Yes.
engineers that I delight in working with.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but right behind that wall, you go down the stairs, you're on the shop floor, and Vanguard is undergoing functional acceptance testing right now.
And do we know how long that takes? Can you share that with us?
Yes, it's a 2 to 3 week process, and we're in our first week, and
Okay.
that's where you sequentially turn on all the systems, cycle their functions, and also find things that we need to find now that need to be fixed before we go to ocean realm.
And so, Norman, where do you hope to see this whole initiative in 10 years from now? Right? Do you see Sentinel being globally scaled and people living underwater? What is your vision for the future?
Exactly that. Multiple habitats, Sentinel habitats in various configurations installed in oceans around the world. And then the other thing that I'll talk about in the coming years that's on our roadmap.
We do have to wrap up in a minute, but I would love for you to share what is the most exciting piece of technology that you designed with your team in Vanguard?
For me, I'd have to say it's the wet porch and everything associated with diving from Vanguard. I've been in and out of Vanguard 100 times as we've done the build and the testing, and every time I step over the moon pool and know that there'll be a day when we are swimming in and out of Vanguard through the moon pool.
Oh, that's so cool. Is there anything, Roger, that I didn't ask you that you'd love to share with our diver audience today that they should know?
Yeah, I think if I would say anything to the audience is that not only speaking, from my perspective, and I'm saying from the heart, really, is that I'm really happy and excited, and I know that the company is happy and excited about keeping the legacy of underwater habitats going, because they just haven't been used for several years, and we're going to change that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part about it that I'm excited about is that we know what we're doing. So, we're coming with a lot of experience, so we don't have to crawl. As soon as this thing goes in the water, we're going to start swimming, pun intended, right? There's no question about how to do it, what we're going to do. Oh my goodness, what about this? No question. We're going to be ready to start running once this thing gets deployed.
Don, what about you? What would you add? Would you add anything to that?
No, I think what Roger said, with just this team, just the vast experience of building, we've acknowledged this, of building on the shoulder of decades, right, of history, experience. A lot of that's already been integrated into the folks that are working with our team, from engineering to operations and even from the science side. So yeah, we're ready to hit go and swim out the moon pool and get going. So super excited about all of that.
Well, you guys should be, I know you're so proud of the work you've done and your teams that you're working with. And I just have to say that, working for PADI, and I think on behalf of the audience that's listening today, that this truly is just pure. It is, you're building on something that's been around, but now you're taking it to the next level. And I hope that it is going to run, because it is so exciting, the potential and opportunity, like to unlock the secrets of the deep, of the ocean, and be able to provide more solutions to some of the problems that are facing us today. And I just see you three are just leaders in that space, and it's so exciting to be able to talk with you and share this exciting project. I think can I say it's the only one really out there right now that's really making strides and about to be deployed underwater. And Dawn, you mentioned earlier, follow you guys at deep.com on Instagram. There's great video content too. That's where I learned about hot sauce with Roger. And that Norman loves the moon pool. And it's really exciting. You get to like really meet these guys and follow along on their journey and see what's coming ahead. And you've done just a beautiful job with sharing and socializing all of that content. And it's just so exciting to witness it. And PADI's a partner with you guys in this, and we want to continue to share your story. And the next milestone, hopefully we can get back on a call and talk about what's happened, and maybe revisit after Vanguard gets in the water. We can talk about what's going on down there.
I'd say our next call is from the habitat itself.
Yes.
That'd be amazing. That'd be very cool, because you guys have been with us, along the way, and we've been really thankful for that. And you were just talking about our media marketing group has just been fantastic too, and working with you guys in that sense. But yeah, we're super excited for the support and to bring this to the diving community.
Oh, absolutely. This is what divers dream of. I think, you want to be in space or underwater, or, doing a combination of both. So, I know there's people, hopefully most kids are in school right now. I think but hopefully they can watch the recording of the younger kids, and maybe their parents can share this with them and get them excited about, we've sent people to space, and we're trying to get people to live underwater for extended periods of time. And that's just that's awesome. So, all right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up unless there's anything else you guys want to share. We good? Okay.
Good.
Thank you so much, Roger, Norman, Dawn. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks for all the PADI audience that's been with us for the past hour. And again, if you want to learn more about Vanguard and Sentinel and the upcoming mission, and more about Deep, just visit deep.com, and you can hear more about all the awesome work that these guys are doing. So thank you all, and hopefully we'll talk soon from underwater.
Thank you, Katie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Bye.
Alrighty now. That was a lot. That was longer than I thought it was going to be, honestly. I didn't know. I was hoping an hour, but you never know with these type of things. Anyway, so I was taking notes. That's what I was doing part of the time, taking some notes to add to my vent session that I plan on having. No, it's not going to be an all. Hey, Brian, thank you for sticking around. That was long. I think it was very informative. I think there's a lot of stuff that we already knew, having watched what they said. There's some other stuff that is interesting. I'll be very curious to see what the updated designs look like. And I'll hold any kind of judgment or statements until I see those. But it's one of those things where the no comment thing was about them only spending 2 years. And I said it's easy to do that when I said, like us too. It's all been done. I mean, all the technology is out there. It's been done. It's just nobody's put it together and had the funding to do it again. And so somehow they got the funding. I will say that it hurts a little bit from the standpoint that everything we've been preaching, I've been saying now for years about how to do this, is exactly what they're doing. Were they listening to us and taking it and running with the ball? I don't know. But it's a little concerning from that standpoint. And they may watch this later. I've tried to reach out to them. We had great dialogue when they first went live about trying to get together and talking. I met Dawn a couple of years ago, spoke to her actually face-to-face down in Florida. So they're very aware of who ASC is and what we're doing. So I know they watch us and they're aware of what we're talking about. So they may catch this, they may see this, especially since it's about this event here. And I'd love to go out and see what they're doing. Whether they have borrowed heavily from my talks and my conversations or not, I don't know. And I won't harp on that anymore. I'm more excited about what they're doing and actually getting something underwater and seeing this take place and go from there. Obviously, ASC, we are not focused on the saturation standpoint of the thing. I think that's the biggest differentiator. And that's one of the notes I put here is our focus is completely different from what Deep is trying to do. We are there for the people and not so much for the science aspect of the thing. And so that's really where our focus is getting people underwater and getting them to see the ocean, or maybe not the ocean, maybe it's just lakes and stuff along those lines, wherever the habitats go. And that's what the focus for ASC is. So with that being said, it's already been long. If you stuck around this long, God bless you. If not, I'll try to put timestamps in this later so people kind of know what's where, so you can chime in and watch what you want to watch. Definitely follow PADI, definitely follow Deep. Both those have tons of information all the time. Deep especially, their Instagram is always busy. I can only hope to be able to allocate the time to put out that type of content. I'm doing better this year than I've ever done before as far as quality content they put out there. That being said, thank you everybody for watching, whether it's you hung out with me live today or you're watching this later. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day. Let me know what your thoughts are below, wherever you're watching this from, and we will talk to you later.